Everyone's calling Google's new Gemini 2.5 image AI revolutionary or insane. But is it really? Or are we just getting caught up in the hype again? We've tested it extensively, and here's the truth. It's good, genuinely good, but it's not the game changer most creators are claiming. Yes, it's a notable leap forward, especially for editing lifelike faces or text on images. But here's what everyone else is not telling you. It still makes basic errors a human would never in a million years make. It struggles with context after just a few editing rounds, and it definitely is not ready to replace your graphic designer just yet. So today, we're giving you the honest breakdown of Gemini 2.5 Flash Image, what it actually does well, where it falls short, and how to integrate it into your workflow right now. So Gil, I've been off for 2 and a bit weeks now on paternity leave, and my YouTube feed for the last week has been full of like, hey, this new Gemini 2.5 Flash is insane. It's amazing. It's the best thing since sliced bread. But knowing AI influencers on YouTube who claim everything is amazing,
everything is insane.
I was a little bit suspicious. So we've been digging into this a little bit more in the last 24 hours or so. And yeah,
it's not been 1 week, by the way. It's been like 3 days at the time at which we're recording, which gave us enough time to test.
Well, the pace AI moves, it feels like it's been a week. But the TLDR basically is that, yeah, this is a significant improvement, but it's not without its problems. And I want to get into a few of those today. So should we start just by talking a little bit about what Gemini 2.5 Flash image is? And
it's basically like, you know, Google's models are like more multimodal than other models. So for example, on the API, you can also upload audio. It can transcribe it. And that's just like on the basic API, for example. And so that's kind of like them adding a modality to a model that they have already, so 2.5 Flash. But it's kind of weird because actually when you use it, it's a different model in the API. So it's kind of like the grand vision is like it's going to be one model that does everything. In technicality, like how you use it, it's actually a different model. But the point is like it generates very good images, it's very good at editing, and it costs like 4 cents per image, basically.
Yeah, so they said it basically works on tokens. So it's like $30 per million tokens, and a 1024 by 1024 image they said would be about 1,300 tokens or so, which is about 3.9 cents per image. So it's still pretty cheap.
It's cheaper than OpenAI. It's 3 times cheaper. If you use the API, it's a big difference actually.
And you can access this through Gemini as well. So you don't need to like pay for API if you're doing it that way. Obviously, you know, you can't really scale it. And basically, yeah, you could tell it to create an image with text, or you can upload other images, ask it to combine it. They made like a big push in their announcement about how you can kind of like add in components from, what was the example? They had like a light or something I saw somewhere. The phone. So this woman it's like a picture of a woman, a picture of a phone, and a picture of, looks like a subway station or something. And it just combined all three together into this like pretty good looking image. Now, I haven't been able to replicate anything quite as good as this. And
this is like they run it 1,000 times and then they pick the best one, etc. Well, I just wanted to show like this LM Arena leaderboard, which it's basically a blind test for models. So it's like people just put a prompt and you get 2 answers and you pick which one you like best, right? And so this model...
And do you know which model is which after you're selecting it?
So they show you after you've picked. So it's like, that's why people call it Nano Banana, because it was called Nano Banana on this platform. So I tried it actually like 2 weeks ago on that platform. It was already available. And that's how they test it. And if you look at the rankings, you can see that this model significantly outperforms pretty much anything we had before. So Flux was doing pretty good. So you can see from this graph that this model significantly outperforms what came before. We're at an LO of like 1,190, and then the new one is 1,362. So it's a very big jump. Like, you know, new AI models, when they come out, they jump like 20, 30 points above each other, whereas now this is 180 points. So basically it's a big jump for image edit.
15% higher, which is, you know, pretty significant, but it's still not as like completely revolutionary as some people would have you believe. Yeah.
You're not going to fire your designer just yet if you're doing professional work, basically. So let's just jump into examples. What do you think?
Okay, sounds good. So my first example is I wanted to look at the combination of 2 things. And YouTube thumbnails are, I think, a particularly high value image. You get one that's good and you get a lot more views on your video. People spend a lot of time. Mr. Beast famously spent days on his YouTube thumbnail. So I thought, this is a good place to start. So I took one of Ali Abdaal's thumbnails. I just took a little screenshot of it. It's like, you know, fair enough, decent thumbnail. and I added in my own studio image of me in a white background. And I said, can you combine the two? And to be honest, I think it did a pretty good job. This is the first version of it. It's still got the timestamp.
I was going to say,
yeah,
the timestamp's
not,
still here. Like,
it's not perfect. That's because I took a screenshot of it on
Yeah.
his YouTube page. I didn't have the original image or anything like that. But that is pretty good. I mean, I think it's fair to say that looks like me. It doesn't look super kind of AI, maybe a little bit.
But you know why? Because it
YouTube
edits,
thumbnails.
actually. It actually cuts. Like, it doesn't redo you. It actually cuts you, and it does actual image editing versus full AI, basically. And I'll show you some examples of photos of me where it's like it miscut and you see part of the photo I uploaded, etc. So the reason it looks like you is because it is you. What it did is it actually cut you out from the photo you gave and put you on the thumbnail. My problem, for example, would be that you see the timestamp, like sometimes I get this and it's good enough, and I ask for like tiny changes and I can never get it exactly what I want, right?
Yeah, so I've noticed that as well. And I think this is quite a good example of it, is like I tried to refine it further. So I gave it some instructions. I wanted to increase the visibility of the red and stuff, which was fine. But then when I started getting into like, okay, well, my head's actually quite small here. Can we make it bigger? Like make it bigger, and then like, okay, that's maybe did an okay job. And then I'm like, maximum big head. And then it cut off the whole thing. Once you start getting past sort of 3 or 4 image generations, I feel like it's got so much context that it's like, it finds it really difficult to zoom out and apply common sense almost. So I was like, revert it back and then it cut off my hands from it and stuff. And then it started to look a bit more kind of
and your face is less like you because it kind of regenerated parts of it. Like it does regenerate parts of the image, but it gets bad. So what I found that works better for me is to actually download the image and start another chat with the next instructions and kind of like do this many times actually. Another test I wanted to do is like ads actually, right? I wanted to see like, can you do Facebook ads or whatever, like that kind of stuff. So I took the Manta mask, which is like a sleeping mask, but I like it because it has a specific shape, which means it doesn't look like most sleeping masks, which is a challenge for an AI model that has been trained on lots of sleeping masks, all looking like, this kind of like H shape on your face. And so what I did is I came up with, you tell me that's probably not the best concept, but baby podcast videos do very well on TikTok. So I was like, what if we make a baby businessman in the plane and then come up with a random slogan, which was work hard, play hard, sleep soft, and then just put him in business class with this mask, basically. And it's like, the image is decent, but you can see that it's still biased towards the shape of the mask, and it didn't actually make the shape of the mask I wanted. And I was like, okay, but the shape of the mask needs to be like the photo. And he's like, oh, sorry, I fixed it. And it wasn't fixed. And then I was like, no, it's not fixed, fix it. And it did this, which is like as if the baby were it, not even the wrong way. It's just kind of like a mix from the other photos. And so like that's the kind of stuff where it's not perfect. Like you can get where you want if you run it like 15 times, Eventually I'll get one that will work. And that wasn't the case in previous models. So that's already a progress. But we're still at this point where you're going to have to run this multiple times to get something production ready, basically.
I think this is a good time to sort of segue into talking about some of the safety issues because, talking about babies, they've applied some pretty strict rules. So if you have like images with kids, like my wife's just had a baby. So I had a photo of me with the baby and I wanted to edit some stuff in there and it just flat out would not do it. No matter how much like trickery or consent I gave in the prompt, it just wouldn't do it.
It happened to me too, but to my, like a photo of me like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that it literally told me like, I cannot edit images from children. And I had the Google guys actually outreach to me asking why it happened, etc. But like the safety settings are pretty high on photos of real people. In my case, on the ad, it was like AI images. It wasn't a real baby, so it didn't have a problem basically.
I do get those Facebook memories pop up like, every other month of me and you from like several years ago. And we were actual babies 5 years ago. It's like, it's crazy.
So yeah, like, I mean, I was like 34 or 35 on this photo, and it's like I still got flagged as a child. So yeah, not great. All right, so the next thing I wanted to do is actually kind of like go back to our roots of Authority Hacker, and I took our very first logo when we started the site.
Brings back some memories, that one.
And took like a photo of us, and I was like, oh, can you make avatars with the same style, basically? And I got this, which is like, I think it borrowed a lot of the face of the character rather than our face. It's not bad, but it's like the faces are basically the same, the eye colors are wrong, etc. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I was picky, so I was like, make their faces more look like the photo. And he's like, how about this? And the only thing he did is he closed my mouse. So yeah, and I was like, oh, the faces need to look more similar, shape, eyes, etc. I just basically couldn't do anything. But then I was like, okay, let's try to put the characters into another setting just to see what happens, right? And when I did that, that's kind of like the problem with long chats with this model is like essentially the two characters became the same, like one of them disappeared, and that was a problem. So what I did is I started another chat with that photo that I generated, and I was like, I'll put them in Arctic gear. In this case, wasn't the best in the sense that obviously like in Arctic gear, you can't recognize the face, but the style is more or less similar. Like you could essentially use these in the same context, and it would be fine. And I was like, give the characters to me on a transparent background. And you'd be like, oh, great, it did a transparent background, right? Well, it's actually not a transparent background. It's actually like random squares, and you
Just
can see
looks
there's
like
a
a
lot of
transparent
glitches.
background.
And you can see that this model is editing because you can actually see the squares that it's using to like put them next to each other to put a quote unquote transparent background. But if I put it in Pixelmator or Canva, it's not transparent. It just has these squares in the background. So that's why, for example, ChatGPT is actually better because actually if you ask for a transparent background, it will do it, which makes it very handy for like production because you can make like, let's say a thumbnail and you want just one element and then ChatGPT generates it. Gemini is worse at this, actually. So it's like, for some stuff it's better, for some stuff it's not as good, basically.
It's like amazing the fact that we can do this, right? If we had this technology back in 2014, back when we were, paying for 100 variations of that character from like a stock library on Shutterstock, that would have been great. We could have had our thumbnails or, blog post featured images in any post we want. But it's almost like the price you pay now for that flexibility is just like often extreme frustration. At just like basic common sense stuff that like you wouldn't even have to really say to a designer. They would just know to do it. But
all I'm saying is any serious entrepreneur I know making multiple 7 figures per year is not going to waste their time with this. They'll pass this to an intern or to a cheap employee that will just operate this for them. But it's not at the point where it's so good that an executive whose time is valuable would probably use this because of all the frustrations that come with it. But a low-paid employee could operate that for you.
Yeah, or if you're in a startup or, like really kind of like hustling, then, absolutely this can come in quite handy.
Yeah.
And I would also say if you're a graphic designer, those who are getting on board with some of this stuff, maybe they can like kind of augment some of the baby steps in their job, but, still keep the high touch work for themselves.
I think there's some workflows that will just be like you create a base with a designer and you kind of make variations with AI, for example. I could see that. That's the next example I have here. So I actually stole this graphic from linkbuilder.io because I think they have some cool graphics on their site. And I was like, and actually I see I made a spelling mistake here. I wrote it in French. I said, create an image in this style, but as an astronaut jumping from a helicopter above a mountain. And the result was actually good enough. Like I could actually put this on the website, provided I wanted to put an astronaut jumping from a helicopter above a mountain. And it's like the style was like close enough that it would actually work with the brand. So that's the kind of stuff that maybe you can use AI to like use a designer to help you with the first version, and then you can make, sub pages with AI or that kind of stuff. And like I can see myself using this for graphics.
Even, the times when you're trying to explain what you want to a designer and you draw on a piece of paper, like a stick man. Yeah. I mean, like you can almost use it to create that, give that to a designer, and then they can make something actually good and usable and on brand.
That's what I do with ChatGPT right now. So it's like basically when we brainstorm our thumbnails, it's like I actually make a shitty version where it's just prompted, and I know the face will look bad and some elements are bad, etc. But the point is like you see it and then you're like, oh, which design do I like the most as a concept? And then you actually redo it. Like what I do then is I ask for transparent background elements of that thumbnail, and then I just grab them and I just bring out real photos, etc. on Canva, and I just give us a thumbnail, basically. So that's kind of like a workflow I use. The problem with this model is it sucks at the transparent background, as you saw. So it's like I probably stick to OpenAI for this, actually, unfortunately.
I've got another example here. So I wanted to give it a bit more of a complex task to do. So I gave it 4 Mr. Beast thumbnails and 1 photo of me. And then I gave it a completely new concept. I wanted to do like $100 versus $10,000 airline seat. And I was like, based on the kind of general style of Mr. Beast thumbnails, what can you come up with? And it came up with this, which is, I mean, actually put Mr. Beast in here, and it put
And then
me
you look like you're
crying,
gonna die, honestly.
yeah, well, I mean, sitting in economy, maybe you will. So it's almost like it kind of got the essence of like, the comparison side by side. That's cool. And, it's put the dollar figures in, and, I'm clearly sad and he's clearly happy, but it just missed so much of the detail that it's like, it's almost unusable in this
Also
current
the
form.
wrong
It's not
aspect
even the
ratio.
right dimensions. Yeah. And then, I tried to,
that's why it
change the
suffers.
aspect dimensions, and it flat out ignored me. And
Yeah.
it feels like as soon as you start getting resistance, you're just not going to solve that problem, and you almost have to like start again or start a new chat. So I tried it again. I tried regenerating in a different way, and it came up with something very similar. It put Mr. Beast in here, not me, but there's just simple things like the TV's the wrong way around, and look at the size
To be
of
honest,
this
in a
plane.
small
It's
thumbnail,
like,
it's not so bad. What the problem is in this is actually the colors are not flashy enough for a thumbnail. It's like, well, it's not you.
it's got a problem with the text generation here as well. And I know historically that's been a problem with AI image models, but it seems to have gotten better. Like there's a few examples, I'll show them a bit later, where I think it did a pretty good job of at least editing text in the right format. And I know that's something that would have been almost impossible just 6 months or so ago.
Yeah, it's better, but it's not perfect. Actually, I'll show you a cool example that I did next, which I actually did a deep research, the rise of real estate prices over the last 10 years in European capitals. Sounds really interesting, doesn't it? How's that going to
Tell me more.
And then what I did is I gave it the deep research, and I was like, make me an infographic, which was like a test of like how good it's going to be at images. So first of all, what I did is actually did code analysis. It made me like, this is not really an image in the sense that it's using the image generation model. It just crunches the data and actually renders a graphic like on Excel, for example, which to be honest, it's accurate and good. But then I was like, no, make me an image I can share on social media. And that's the image I got from it. And when you look at it initially, you're like, actually, it's pretty good. The problem is, look at, it's Portugal, and it's 209% and 147% at the same time.
Yeah, it always struggles with things like proportions.
The proportions, I mean, even OpenAI struggles with it when they release GPT-5, so that's okay. I don't know if you saw the graphics they had when they released GPT-5, but they actually had graphics that showed stats of the model that was like 30 and 60 at the same level, etc. So it's like, but the point is like, yeah, it's still not usable. You're not a credible source if you share this. And actually, some of the numbers are wrong. I actually double-checked the numbers, and it was wrong. So I kind of like fix the data, and I got the data from the calculation. I kind of did the code again. I'm like, no, I want an image, and it give me this. And that's where the chats just go like, just whatever this is. And it's like, I tried to keep going, but yeah, it just couldn't. And many of the walls are now mashed up, and it's not good basically. So it's like, for at least complex infographics, it's not good enough yet. For maybe simple things with like 2 or 3 stats, it might get away with it, but we're not at the point where these models have figured this out yet.
Let's talk about text editing quickly. So I used a few of our thumbnails, and I just asked it simply, change the text to say, stop using ChatGPT to start using Gemini. And I think it did a pretty good job of it. I think it's a fairly simple task. That used to be very complicated, but no issues there. It's 100% good on that.
I think it's really cool because, look, it resized the rectangle behind Gemini as well. It's like shorter as well, and that's good actually.
Yeah, so I thought about that, and I was like, I wonder if we have a thumbnail where the text kind of goes over our faces, and so it's a little bit more complex to fix. So I found this one here, and I was like, change the text to be, and I just found something shorter so I know it would like uncover our faces. I mean, it's maybe not proportioned particularly well, but
it's decent.
If you look in, like if we zoom in here, you can kind of see when you look very closely that this bit of your face, this bit of my hair, it looks a bit different to the rest of it basically, but
it's fine.
You would never really notice unless you're looking closely, and certainly in a thumbnail, it's fine. I mean, about as good as you're going to get for something like that. So I was pretty impressed with its ability to do that. And I know that's something they've been really pushing and asking and saying that this model is good at specifically doing this kind of work.
For a little bit of text, yes. For a lot of text, no. Like, for example, this is kind of like my default stress test for a model. When a model gets like a proper anatomical table properly, like with the text, is good. But like when you open this, it's literally just like this gibberish. You cannot read anything actually. Yeah. So it's like, it gets the idea. I'm not even sure the anatomy is correct. That's something that maybe a doctor can tell us. There's no lungs, for example, so I don't know why is there why is there a liver but no lungs? It's like question. But like the point is like small text, big infographics, we're not there yet. You cannot use it for that actually. But yeah, this edit that you've done is pretty good actually.
I've got another example here, and this is actually from ChatGPT, and this is 6 months ago. And this is an image of my Airbnb. And if you notice, they've taken this photo, and in the background in a different room, it's hardly visible unless you look closely, but there's a ladder, and it just kind of like looks a bit out of place. So I've been trying to like have AI get rid of this ladder for the last 6 months or so, and it's always failed. Like in this one here, it gets rid of the ladder, but
It changes a lot,
gets rid
yeah.
of everything else there. It messes up. This is supposed to be like a doorway.
Yeah, it's true.
Like
The door's
a
gone.
different room, and it's wallpaper in the back, but it's changed it to a poster there, and it just the whole thing looks kind of a bit too AI now. So that was a problem. However, the same image in Gemini, and
Yeah.
I think it does a pretty good job of it.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, it
very
has
good.
taken out like there was a table and there was a little bit of a chair there, but it's kept the rest of the image intact perfectly. And yeah, I think that's about as good as you can expect from something like this.
I
at
think,
the
yeah,
moment,
this is
so.
usable. Like you could put this on your Airbnb listing and it wouldn't feel fake anymore.
One thing though I did notice is that all the images have this little
You can fix
watermark at
it.
the bottom right. Can you get rid of that? Or
So I use a tool called Manta. So basically with any tool that has a repair tool, you know, the little kind of like plaster thing, it will delete this very well and easily, and then you won't see basically. So that's kind of how you do it. You can use Canva if you want, you can use whatever. I use Manta Pro, and then you can just download these images and remove the watermark here. So yeah, you can just remove these watermarks here and you won't see them anymore most of the time. So yeah, but that's their way of like essentially, because they're so good, these images, you can really fake a lot of shit right now. And so that's their way to kind of like, it's token protection. There is also metadata in these images. So it's like if whatever you're using reads metadata, for example, I think Airbnb might start reading the metadata. You might get caught or they might do something about it. So if you were uploading this image, I believe in the next 3 to 4 months, Airbnb will actually check for this now that these models are this good. And they might not let it
it's a
go
good point,
through.
actually. Yeah.
It's like they're doing a lot of watermarking, both on the image level, but also inside the file, etc. So, but you know, there's ways to hide that. So let's say you remove the thing with a repair tool, and then you take a screenshot of the image. Boom, metadata gone, you know?
Yeah, there are tools that wipe metadata, or you can
Yeah,
specify
but it's like they might be able to.
geotagging and things like that. So
Yeah, but like the screenshot thing it works very well. Like, it's not really scalable, but that could work. Okay, so another thing I tried as well is just restarting photos. So I just took a photo of my dog, a random photo of him, and I was like, make a Van Gogh painting from this. And this is what I got actually, which looks a lot like him actually. Like, if I did this with
absolutely.
ChatGPT, it wouldn't work. Then I tried to put text, like random text. I was like, and with emojis and stuff. I put the text, it's decent. Then I was like, edit the text. And then I was like, change it to this is art. And you can see the spacing is kind of fucked up now because it got used to the spacing for the text. And then when I try to fix it, it just doesn't. Like that's when you kind of hit a wall. So like that shows you like what's possible, but also what's not good. And also I think the brush strokes, so like look, the first version, they're quite like marked and they have this kind of like impressionist kind of vibe, but they kind of like get washed out the more generations I do actually. So you do lose a little bit of image quality for every single impression. So every single round that you do is this, which is quite important to know as well. But overall, like decent if you want to do this.
I got one more example, and this is a particularly difficult image, I think, to fix because there's a lot of like quite harsh lights coming in there. And I wanted to remove my glasses from this.
It's you flying
here.
in your plane, by the way, just so we give context.
It's someone else's plane, but yeah.
Okay.
And I thought it did a really, really good job of that.
Yeah, this kind of stuff is good.
That's
the jump.
Like me. Yeah, that looks like me. Maybe I look a little bit older, or maybe I
a little. I think no.
Older, but
no, I think you look a bit older.
It's almost like the light makes my hair look a bit gray or something.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like that in the original image anyway. But yeah, I was really, really impressed with this. And so I wanted to compare it to Grok, which some people were talking about in a thread I was reading
The
recently.
Grok fans are really big fans of Grok usually.
Well,
it's kind of a cult.
I put the same image on there, and these were the
Holy
results.
shit.
So
yeah,
you can see these are like, I don't know who that person is.
To
but
be
it's
fair,
absolutely not me.
It's on par with what ChatGPT would do with your face. Like it's not
Yeah.
worse. But now the bar has been raised and like the preservation of faces and like you recognize the people and these simple edits, they work very well. You know, they're actually rolling this out in Google Photos as well. So in Google Photos, you'll be able to open your photos, click on a button and just say, like talk. And it will just kind of like do the edit for you, basically. They're doing this for this, and they're doing this for advertising, obviously. It's good enough for many advertisers to like showcase their products, etc.
Yep.
And that's why Google is pushing this so hard. But yeah, the jump is this. The jump is like removing the glasses, removing the ladder in the background, all of that, like real image edits. That works very, very, very well. And I'm going to be using this model for this.
And there was a couple of tools which Google announced along with the release of this, which are kind of built into AI Studio. One is called PicShop, and it's basically, uses the model, but it allows you to do certain things like you can, select an area and then describe what you want to do rather than having to use text to describe where you want. And there's various adjustment filters and things like that in there. And I thought it did a pretty good job. So if you remember was it this one here? When I just used text to describe it, it removed everything. Whereas in this one here, I asked it to keep as much of the furniture as it can. And it's removed the ladder, but it's kind of invented some, I don't know if that's like a seat or a different seat or a sofa there, but the rug's still there. It looks, I think, a little bit better. I was a bit more impressed with this. So if you're looking to be very precise with something, then that tool's available. And there was another one, which is called Gemini Co-Drawing, which if you've ever made kind of like stickman images, or if you want to like draw a graph on your iPad, or like in my case with a mouse here, and it looks horrible, right? The way I've done it. It's like a 4-year-old in Microsoft Paint or something.
You're generous.
But all I said was tidy up this graph and let's hope that it works. I'm kind of doing this live
AI
for
demos.
Once.
They never go well.
Yeah.
Okay, much better.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it still looks like it's kind of hand drawn, but it looks presentable.
This is quite cool for like diagrams extra. I might actually use that for the website and stuff like that. Like this is cool for blog posts, etc. You can just make a shitty version like on your iPad or something, and then just upload it and ask it to do a version of that. Yeah, that's pretty cool actually.
Yeah.
Like same, like you could use that for like client presentations, that kind of stuff potentially. There's a lot of use cases in terms of speeding up your work here. It's a cool model. I would argue this might be a bigger jump than GPT-5 was in terms of using AI in general, in the sense that we already had a bunch of smart models anyway. So it's like, yeah, maybe slightly smarter at some stuff, but we're opening new use cases with this model that weren't
the fact
before.
that it can do faces well, not perfectly, but well, it really is a game changer. But I think
you start sounding like the AI influencers now.
Here you go. Here's my caveat. But I think where this model falls short is it's just very unreliable. Like, you cannot apply this in an automation at scale and get consistent results because there's too much variability.
You need to babysit it.
In it.
It's very much like coding. You don't code an app. Like it's very rare that you just let AI go build a whole app for you that actually is functional up to the level that you're going to release it. You actually babysit the chat or whatever, and then you give feedback, you give it the bugs, etc. Very similar, except this one is not even that good at multi-turn editing. So once you get past returns, you might as well just start a new chat with your current image because it just kind of goes to shit, to be honest.
I feel like the context, like engineering side of this is a little bit picky. If you don't get what you want right away, then you're never going to get it.
But the progress is good. Like, honestly, a lot of people also are talking about, oh my God, AI is stalling. This is it. Like, it's not going to get any better because GPT-5 was not the revolution people expected. This is progress in AI, and this opens new case. Like, 100%. When we start running ads again, I'm going to use this to create ads, for example. And I think a lot of advertisers are going to use that. Like, together with VO3 as well, you can make images, upload the images, and make videos from it. And it's actually quite good. So like Google is kind of becoming that kind of powerhouse at everything that's not text and code, basically. Like, they're kind of losing on the code side, but images and videos, they're like ahead by quite a margin at this point.
And you can see where the final kind of destination of this is for Google and Meta and anyone that runs ads is like, you just upload a bunch of photos of your product and say, do advertising, and then it will just create all the targeting itself, and now all of the, well, not quite
and
yet,
use the data they
future, have. All of the copy, all of the images and videos and stuff in future, and it'll just target exactly who it needs to with the exact creatives that are going to convert them, which is pretty exciting, but also a little bit scary at the same time.
You're on another agency. It's not that exciting because eventually they will swallow that entire industry. That's what the goal is. Like they basically see the value of AI. It's like, well, if we can make our our advertising system 50% more efficient and get more people to use it because it's way easier to use, then we probably pay back for whatever investment we've made. And I think that's kind of like this, and coding is the bet from AI companies at this point. And the rest doesn't matter too much. So that's why ChatGPT, GPT-5 doesn't matter that much because it's all about coding. That's high value. Lots of GDP in the world is tied to coding, and people will pay for coding, and then also ads. So this is the AI progress we get. It might not affect you 100%, but to be honest, if you're a marketer, this affects you. You should be using this stuff, even for blog posts, etc. Making cool diagrams, etc. Like this can feel very authentic. Let's say that you have on the screen
for presentations and things like that. I think anything internal, especially, like this is absolutely usable right now out of the box. So. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about this before we move on to the next story?
No, that's it.
Okay. So Perplexity, which is an AI search engine, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Which we both use a lot. I think it's really, really good.
I use the
for
API
catching
actually
up on
mostly.
news. The API is really good for doing like prospect research for cold outreach and some cool things like that. But they've apparently been hit with quite a number of copyright lawsuits recently from big publishers, including some big newspapers in Japan, Dow Jones, and they've had cease and desist from Forbes and Condé Nast, basically saying, hey, stop using our content and presenting it as your own thing. So they've come up with I don't know whether this is a genuine solution or they're just trying to like get these lawsuits off their back and show that they're trying to, do something that's in favor of publishers. But they've come up with this idea to create a premium subscription, which is called Comet Plus for some reason.
They already have premium subscriptions.
Well, this is where it gets a bit weird because the premium subscription, it's normally $5 per month, but it's included if you have a Perplexity Pro or Max account, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that all of the paid Perplexity accounts?
Yeah, that's all of them, yeah.
So I'm not quite sure why they've worded it in this way. Maybe that's to give them some leeway in future to create other tiers or something. But essentially, if you have a Perplexity Pro account for $20, $5 of that will now go into this pool of money.
Okay.
And then publishers will get 80% of that pool minus the compute costs for when results generated with their input context
minus the compute costs
are generated. Yeah.
So probably not a lot.
and if it's anything like Hollywood, where they just say, oh yeah, our compute costs were very high this year, and they can do some creative
they're all
accounting
losing money
to
right
skew
now.
that.
So it's like, yeah.
But this is the thing that's interesting. Perplexity is not that big of a company. It's nowhere near the size of, Google or Anthropic or
that's why they're being attacked.
And anyone like that. So like the lawsuits are for $20 million or something like that, which, it's still a crap ton of money, but it's nothing like, that's a rounding error to Google. So I think maybe they're going after them because they're small and maybe can't really
because it
defend
creates
themselves quite
precedent.
so much.
If they lose, then they can go after the bigger guys.
Yeah, maybe. But it's interesting that they're kind of going on with this premium subscription model and this model to try and reimburse some publishers. I think that most of the money, it's not going to be.
But how are they going to pay
to
you?
the big.
Like, how does it work? Am I going to receive money? Like,
I don't know. I would imagine you would probably have to like register for the pool.
Nobody's going to.
And then it would be some kind of algorithms, kind of like how Spotify works, right?
Yeah,
if your thing gets streamed, if your content gets included in an AI answer, you'll get a portion of that, depending on how many other people are included as well. So it's, unless you're a big publisher, this is probably going to be like nothing to a few cents a month. But it could set a significant kind of precedent if this picks up as a model, because we still have that issue with AI. Is like, well, what's the incentive to create your own content on your own site? At the moment, it's very low because Google's not sending you traffic and AI is just stealing it. So where is AI going to get its content from to learn and to iterate from in future?
Cloudflare is doing this actually. They're making a thing where you can charge for the AI crawlers. So I think this one has more of a chance to succeed because most sites are already on Cloudflare. They could collect the money, pay back people and everything. I think the Perplexity thing is just a PR stunt to calm it down. That's it. Or to look better to a jury.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to our next one. And this is actually a post you made on LinkedIn, Gail. So I wanted
Can you imagine I post on LinkedIn now?
Yeah, this AI agents are the new crypto. That certainly
AI
got my
wrote
attention
that.
when I read that. But, isn't crypto at like an all-time high at the moment or something? So maybe it's like...
But so are AI agents,
Yeah. Do you want to just explain a little bit more about why you're maybe not so bullish on
I
AI
think,
agents at the moment.
well, I mean, scroll to the image I put at the bottom. I think it's going to be more visual to people. Basically, like AI agents versus automation are two different things, right? An AI agent essentially is like you have an AI on top that decides what to do next and decides on the step of the workflow. You can influence that through your prompt, but it doesn't always listen to it. And sometimes it will just like do multiple tool calls that it doesn't need to do. And it has access to APIs and so on. So let's say quite often I give Perplexity to an agent because we just talked about them to research information. And so every time the agent decides to call Perplexity, it costs me like 4 cents or something. And the agent decides to call Perplexity 20 times, well, it costs me 20 times 4 cents. And so the thing is like agents are incredibly inefficient to do many things these days because they have to essentially think about what they're going to do, call the tool. Then basically when they call the tool, it's another API call with all the history of every tool call that happened before. So essentially as if you repay for all the tokens of everything that happened before when you put it in the agent. And then they do that, sometimes run 5, 6, 7, 12 tools. And so like eventually I've had agents, for example, checking tasks on Notion, where it was that like sometimes I prompted it to check the tasks that are between today and the next week, but because it decided to do a different tool call, it picked all the task database, and that filled its context, and it used 900,000 tokens. And so like, boom, here goes $5. And then that becomes both slower and more inefficient than actually just using AI when you need it. So instead of having all these AI decide when to do the tool calls, I think that building automation on tools like N8N or even Make or whatever, and getting the data first, putting it into the prompt, having AI process that data that you have built like in a deterministic way, so it cannot decide to do any other way, and then use the output to call more tools, etc., is much more efficient 90% of the time, and also much cheaper, like up to like 20 times cheaper or something. AI agents, they do work sometimes, but you really shouldn't be making it default to build your automation.
I think you're right. You know, there is a good 5-10% of the time when they are phenomenal. Yep. I think, but the allure or the promise of AI agents
is exciting.
Being able to like figure stuff out and decide what to do and just do it really well. It kind of, people will default to that because it takes away the hard work of them having to actually figure out what their current process is or the optimal way to run their current process and test that. And I know, but like the perception is that I can just say, oh, AI agent, give it the tools, but it's really inefficient at it and it's unreliable at scale. Not always, but often. So if you take the time to really figure out the step-by-step yourself, you get a much more predictable, scalable, and ultimately better result in most cases.
And that means most N8N influencers are full of shit because they're kind of selling you on this agent thing. People get really excited by that, like comment under my post, etc. Like this agent can take care of everything for you. You just message it on WhatsApp. Yeah, you can, but you will pay, like if you really use it a lot, you'll pay like $150 of API cost per month or something like that for something that's very mediocre and just adds appointments to your calendar. And it's like, is that worth it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, you know.
It triggers me a bit, the word agentic, because I feel like it's almost become not a description of what it does, but like a marketing thing for like this kind of complex AI black box that just does something cool. And so people kind of attach that name to their product, even though it's not necessarily what's going on behind the scenes always as a way to kind of sell it.
Yeah, I think that the way to make money today is to build a product that's like a linear automation and sell it as an AI agent. You want to make money? Do that. Because people will pay more for the idea of an AI agent, but they'll actually be happier with a linear automation that's well designed. And you can have like if this, then that kind of conditions, etc., to build some intelligence without necessarily using AI. Or you can even have AI decide just as a step, like which way to go, for example. That's a very cheap API call versus actually giving it giant context and multiple tool calls, etc. And so like, yeah, that's my problem. The industry is overhyped on agents. Agents are really powerful in tools like Cloud Code, and we'll talk about that later, but I'm testing the new OpenAI coding tool this morning. It was very good, actually. Like these kind of tools, it's working, but to be honest, you can probably count on 2 hands the companies that have executed agents to a level that it really lifts productivity.
Yeah. So, I mean, just for the avoidance of doubt, we're not saying all agents suck, don't use them. I think there's a bright future here, but it just does get overused and overhyped a little bit at the moment. And yeah, if you actually go and look at the decisions and the internal dialogue it has quite often, you see like it's just such a waste of time and like there's so many stupid things like pathways it goes down before it arrives at the conclusion,
Yep. And it fails the tool calls very often as well. So it needs to kind of redo it, and it's reloading another API call. They're not perfect. You can tweak them, make them better, but it's actually very time consuming.
And, if you want to build AI agents or linear automations, you're probably going to be using a tool like N8N or Make.com. And they've both had some interesting pricing changes recently, which is our next story. So N8N is, if you've never used it, it's like a slightly more complex version of Zapier or Make, which has a self-hosted community version, which after you pay for the hosting costs, it's free to run. And, Zapier famously just kept increasing their cost per credit or action or whatever they're calling it. And so, when you're having AI agents or any process which has a lot of steps to it, that can really get quite expensive quite quickly. So this is a way to build cool stuff without having those kind of like per usage fees.
That's what we use, by the way, just to
but N8N has changed a few things. So their cloud hosted version, which is, it's not the self-hosted version, the cloud hosted version, they have started introducing workflow executions limits to it. And also on their self-hosted version, which is the business version,
where you pay for
I really can't understand this. It's $800 or £800 a month if you're in the UK, and you still only get 40,000 executions per month on that, which is wild.
But you get higher security settings. Like it's really for like real enterprise stuff, etc. Like that's why you do.
Yeah, but if you compare the pro version, it's £120 for 50K.
Yeah, because it's like
this.
That's how this works. That's what pays for the free version. It works the same for all the dev tools, where it's very expensive on the high end and it's basically free on the low end. And just a few people pay for everyone, basically. So that's how it works. Like some enterprise level stuff, like financial institutions, etc., they do need this actually.
Yeah, that's fair, and they can afford that, I'm sure.
Exactly.
But if you are wanting to use N8N, make sure you use the community edition. It's once you self-host it, it's free, and there's no user.
I have a tutorial on my YouTube channel on how to set it up, actually. So check it out.
Okay, well, Gail Breton on YouTube, is it?
Yeah.
So Make.com, which is a competitor to N8N, has also changed their pricing. They used to have their unit of credit used to be an execution. So for each agent or AI call or whatever step it was, it would use one of these executions.
It would go fast.
But they've changed that to credits. So some nodes or whatever they're called inside Make.com, what are they called? It's been a while
nodes,
since I used Make.
I don't know. Steps.
Is it still a node in there? I don't know. Some steps have higher credit costs. So you might pay 2 or 4 credits for that, particularly if you're using AI and you're not using your own API key. So if you use your own API key, it's still 1 credit from Make plus your API cost, whatever that is. But if you want to just have it all baked in and you I guess use Make's API for an LLM, then you might pay 4 credits for the same thing. So it makes it a little bit easier and you don't have to set that up. But I feel like this is a bit of a money grab. And
the thing as well is like, imagine you set up your whole company. I mean, in this case, if it's just for AI nodes, it's like fair enough. But if it's for other nodes that do things, you might have lots of automation set up on Make.com. And you're kind of like a hostage. It's not easy to migrate this to something like N8N. And that's why I love N8N, because it's open source. Like, even if they decide to make a paid version of the community version, you just don't update. And then you have at least some time to figure this out. I'm not saying you can stay on this forever, but you can probably hold for like a year and a half and be fine, unless there's a massive security breach or something. That's the problem with these kind of platforms.
I think what gives me some comfort around N8N is like the community aspect, like the people who are using self-hosted community node and who are building a lot of creators are, vigorously kind of like in defense of that side of things. So probably prevents them from just, squeezing everyone out with like racketing up their prices every 6 months and then going after the whales, basically, which I think Zapier has already done several years ago, and Make.com
is super expensive now
on the same track. Yeah, it's crazy, actually crazy.
I was doing a video and then I was comparing the prices, and it's insane. Like the stuff that even Make, like that would be like
it's insane, is it? Wow, actually insane.
Yeah, actually insane, but the price, not the capabilities. Capabilities are insane the other way. But yeah, like you'd pay $1,000 for like what would cost $200 on Make. It would cost like $10 on self-hosted and N8N. Like that's the level of difference. We're talking 10x price difference, and probably scales up as you use it more, basically. So yeah.
Okay, so final segment today, and I wanted to ask you this, Gail, because I genuinely have been out of the loop for 2.5 weeks now. because I've been having a baby, but what has changed
Don't
in
need to
terms
justify.
of like AI model selection? What are you using Gemini day to day still? Like what's your AI
Okay.
stack right now and what tools are you using?
So GPT-5 came out, so I kind of resubscribed to ChatGPT for 4 months, GPT Plus. I was already unsubscribed. I was kind of using Gemini by default. I've done weird shit, I'll tell you. But like the point is I was like, yeah, I need to test GPT-5. Like that's kind of the point. And I want to test it in the same setting that everyone's testing. So not necessarily in Typing Mind or something, even though the API is cheap. I've tested both in ChatGPT, in Typing Mind, and in N8N. And my conclusion is that the non-reasoning version of GPT-5 is horse shit. You should not use it. It's terrible. And that's kind of like the default on ChatGPT. Like that's the non-thinking one. The thinking version on ChatGPT, I quite like it because you're going to love it. It's agentic in the sense that it might do multiple rounds of searches for something. So for example, I was like, one of the things is like we were looking at like different places where we could live, etc. I'm like, is it better to buy or to rent or whatever based on the current real estate prices? And GPT-5 thinking would like actually go and get multiple listings and get bank offers, etc., and compare all of that, which Gemini is not necessarily very good at. Gemini tends to do like what they call fan-out query, which is like 20 queries at once. But then whatever comes back, that's pretty much it. That's what it uses for context. It doesn't really reason on that and run other searches. So like I quite like the thinking model from ChatGPT. I hate the default one. I think it's the worst model out of all models right now. The problem with GPT-5 thinking is the API is incredibly slow. Like I don't know why. I mean, I got used to Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is a really good balance between speed and smartness. And I built a lot with it. And it's like, even the mini version of GPT-5, like reasoning, it takes forever, to the point that yesterday I was running N8N automations and it timed out, like literally, because it's so slow, sometimes the automations fail. So it's like, I would like to use the API more, but the reliability is poor, whereas Google is much better. So I tend to kind of default to Google still because of the price to value to consistency ratio. Still very good. I run most agents on 2.5 Flash, for example, it's good enough. And I run 2.5 Pro when there's a writing task, for example. But yeah, and then I have Claude Code and I have Claude as well, which I find to be quite good at writing these social posts. So for example, the social post that you showed earlier, it's like I give it bullets and I have a lot of custom files, etc. And it just knows what to write and I kind of collaborate with it. And it's probably the better writer. I would not use it with the API because the API is like prohibitively expensive. It's like $75 per million token out versus 10 for ChatGPT. But when you have it in a subscription, it's fine. You can use it. So that's kind of like the stack right now. For coding, I'm actually trying the codex. Like the OpenAI just released essentially something like Claude Code, but it also works a little bit like Cursor. Like, it's a chat on the right of your code editor.
A bit easier to use and set up as well, right?
Yeah, well, I know we tried to set you up on Claude Code. It didn't go so well, but this would be a lot easier. And yeah, it's quite good actually. And you can use it with your ChatGPT subscription. So ChatGPT is kind of a mixed bag in the sense that the default model is really, really bad, but the thinking model is good. And now you can actually code with it. And for $20, you get quite a bit. Gemini overall pretty good, especially if you want to do images and videos because they're the best right now. And then Claude is kind of like the most customizable enterprisey type tool. So they kind of all have their pros and cons. I use a bit of all of them, really. That's
what about for low cost, high volume automation operations, like simple stuff, but you had to repeat a lot?
2.5 flashlight is actually quite good. Like, again, I tried Nano, but it's much slower.
This model you're talking about, right?
So 2.5 flashlight from Google is like very cheap and very fast. So quite often, for example, I run a main agent on N8N on 2.5 flash. And then I have a sub agent that's just like, for example, reading the labels of an email and just applying the labels, for example, very basic. I will put that on 2.5 flashlight. It's much, much cheaper. It's like, 4 or 5 times cheaper. It just does the same job. So yeah,
that's the one you also get. Is it 1,000 free calls per day
1,500,
on the
I think.
API?
Yeah. So it's
I think they reduced it recently, but if you mix between like 2.5 Flash Lite and 2.5 Flash, until you hit a certain scale, you can actually do most of your AI workflow stuff for free with that.
And so like that makes it even more compelling to just use them. And again, if OpenAI was just faster, I would probably use them because I think the cost to intelligence is actually better with OpenAI, but it's just too slow.
They do have some like nano models though on OpenAI, like for GPT-5 though, are they?
It's slow. Again, it's like if you're gonna run like 2,000
it's weird that one's slow. Yeah,
they're all slow. It's like I don't know if I have a problem or if it's N8N instance or whatever, but like even like on typing mine, it's much slower than Gemini actually. And so like, yeah, if you're gonna run large volume operations, which means like thousands of API calls quite often, it will take a long time. If the model is like 30% slower, that could mean hours, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. It feels like Google is like a better workhorse at this point. 2.5 Flash is a very good default model to just do operations. For writing, not very good, but for operations, I like it actually. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
Perfect. So anything else you want to cover, or should we wrap it up there?
I think we can wrap it up.
Okay, brilliant. Well, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on this format of covering multiple stories like this. So head on over to the YouTube channel and leave us a comment. We do read them all and we try to reply to all of them that we hear there. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff, and hopefully see you back in another 2 weeks for the next episode.